There are so many abandoned places around the globe which often leave you with more questions than they do answers. Why was it abandoned? Who lived there? Why has nothing been rebuilt on that site? Today we globetrot to some of these abandoned places and homes and learn more about their sad tales that had them abandoned forever. Number 18. Okunoshima Island in Takehara, Japan. We're hopping on a boat to head to Okunoshima Island in Takehara, Japan. It's fondly known as Usagi-jima, or Rabbit Island. The island used to house a poison gas facility, but it was abandoned when the war ended. It's not quite clear how the rabbits got there, but as there are no dogs or cats on the island, the rabbits are free to breed like, well, rabbits, and they enjoy the occasional treat from the rare visitor to the island. Number 17. 1984 Winter Olympics bobsleigh track, Sarajevo. White elephants from previous Olympic Games seem to be more common than not, and many cities have been left with empty buildings that get forgotten about when the Games are over. Sarajevo in Bosnia is no exception. They hosted the 1984 Winter Olympics and built a bobsleigh and luge track for the important event. Thousands watched the races, and although this story is slightly different in that when fighting broke out in the area, the luge was used as an artillery position. Chances of it having been utilized are slim regardless. Today, it's overgrown and in disrepair, and that's where it will remain until who knows when. Number 16. Canfranc International Railway Station, France. This once glamorous railway station opened in 1928 and has been described as the epitome of Art Nouveau and connected France with Spain. It wasn't too long, though, until the main line was used by German soldiers to transport gold out of France. And then, in the 70s, a derailment caused a bridge to fall and repairs were going to be very costly. The French decided not to rebuild and has been abandoned ever since. Number 15. Kowloon Walled City, Hong Kong. This was a former watch post located just outside Hong Kong during the time of British rule. After that, it was occupied by Japan, but only until they surrendered, and then both Britain and China wanted nothing to do with the area, so it ended up as a lawless city. The population just kept growing. Trash was everywhere. Buildings were so high that it blocked sunlight. Casinos were plenty, men could visit women whenever and wherever they wanted. Unsavory substances were as easily accessible as sweets, and you couldn't be sure that the meat you just ordered was actually beef. To be fair, it's been torn down now, but Kowloon Walled City was vacant for decades. It's now the Kowloon Walled City Park, and yet not many know of the colorful area of that once abandoned spot. Number 14. Fordlandia, Brazil. If you're in the mood for a trek, then head here. It's literally in the middle of nowhere. Makes you wonder what Henry Ford was thinking, but on paper, it sounded fair. He wanted to start a little industrial town away from certain laws and regulations in order to produce rubber for his vehicles at a fraction of the cost. The men who worked for him were forced to live like Americans, eat their food, live in their style of housing, wear ID badges, and basically just be someone they were not. And when they didn't listen, he would punish them. The natives had enough, and in 1930 revolted against Ford and fled. The site has been empty ever since. Number 13. Unoccupied Irish homes in Ireland. There are quite a number of these across Ireland, and from an outsider's point of view, it is truly bizarre. The streets are filled with lovely little homes, and you'd expect to see kids playing in the street, people walking their dogs, and the regular comings and goings of everyday suburban life. Except that things are eerily quiet. The houses are all empty. After the 2008 housing collapse, the homes were never sold. Number 12. Varosha, Famagusta, Cyprus. Varosha used to be a district of Famagusta in Cyprus. During the 70s, this was the place to be. Celebrities used to spend their vacations here, and it was voted the #1 tourist destination in Cyprus. In 1974, the Turks invaded Cyprus, and all the citizens fled for safety, never to return again. The district has been fenced off, and to this day remains unoccupied. Number 11. Humberstone, Chile. Once upon a time, this used to be a bustling little town. From the 1920s through the early 1940s, residents benefited from the wealth that the mining of saltpeter in the area generated. When a synthetic version of saltpeter was created, well, that was the end of the little town. By 1961, it was completely empty, and now, with the continuous blowing of sand from nearby deserts, deterioration has happened rapidly. Luckily, it's now been named a World Heritage Site, so it's likely the area will see conservation efforts taking place soon. Number 10. Quneitra, Syria. Hard to believe that Quneitra used to be the capital of the region, so what happened? Israeli forces captured Quneitra in 1967. Syrian forces managed to reclaim it in 1974. However, their victory was short-lived as the Israelis got it back very quickly. The city ended up being destroyed that same year, and the Syrian government refused to do anything about it. As you see it now, is how it's been ever since. Number 9. Discover Hut, Antarctica. This little hut, located on Ross Island, Antarctica, was built by Robert Falcon Scott in 1902. It was used during the Discovery Expedition, which began in 1901 and ended in 1904. The hut was used for a few expeditions thereafter, but eventually ended up losing to the ice and snow. In 1956, the hut was dug up and found to be perfectly preserved, and exactly as it was left in 1917. It's on the World Monuments Watch list of 100 of the most endangered sites in the world. Number 8. Restense, Gran Italy. This is a most unusual spot, and it's an entire village that lies underneath an artificial lake. There are 163 buildings there, although you can only see the bell tower. The village was submerged to ensure seasonal power was available to Gran and Resten. In the middle of winter, you can walk across the frozen lake and see the bell tower up close. Number 7. Vit Noom Australia. Once home to 20,000 people, Vit Noom is now empty. Easy to understand why, though, as this town used to mine asbestos. When people became more aware of the dangers involved with asbestos, the mines were shut down in the 60s. But tragically, 1,000 people were permanently affected by asbestos-related illnesses. Today, there are only 8 people who live there, and you can still see asbestos fibers littering the city's streets. Number 6. Spinalonga Crete, Greece. It's been more than 60 years that Spinalonga has been closed. This was the oldest leper colony in Europe, and the last person who lived there left in 1962. It operated from 1903 and was often referred to as Dante's Tunnel, and many who entered the island were not sure of their fate, but it's been said they were treated very well, receiving food, water, and care. Number 5. Chatterley Whitefield Colliery, Stoke-on-Trent, UK. This is a photographer's dream. Across the UK, it's not uncommon to find abandoned coal mines, but this one is quite picturesque. It began mining coal in 1863 and worked right through till 1974 and was officially the first coal mine to produce 1 million tons of coal in a year. The mine was made into a museum, but it was shut down in 1993 and the site has been lifeless since then. Number 4. Pnombokor, Kampot Province, Cambodia. This empty spot used to be a resort that was built by the French in the 1920s who couldn't handle the hot, humid, and wet summers in Cambodia. The building of the fort was torturous and claimed the lives of 900 people. The resort was abandoned in the 1940s and is now quite easy to access if you so desire. City of Ghosts was filmed there as well as Our Point. Number 3. Kirby Hall, Gretton, England. The only thing you'll find wandering these halls are probably the ghosts of those that once lived in this beautiful home. It used to belong to Sir Christopher Hatton, who was Lord Chancellor to Queen Elizabeth I. Building began in 1570, but today many parts of the building are roofless. Why it's been left to get this way is not very clear, but it's also been the site of many films and series. Number 2. Agdam, Azerbaijan. In its heyday, 150,000 people once lived in Agdam. The city was lost in 1993 during the Nagorno-Karabakh fighting and was just left to vandalism. The buildings were gutted and no one has lived there since 1993, having moved to other parts of Azerbaijan or Iran. Number 1. North Brother Island, New York City. It was 1885 when New York City bought this island to build a hospital on. It was a place for patients to go who were suffering from the most contagious diseases like typhus, tuberculosis, and smallpox. It was here that Typhoid Mary spent a great deal of her time. She was a carrier of the highly contagious disease, and with her job as a cook for several families, she infected them, one after the other. She always felt she was detained unfairly, and when she was permitted to leave in 1910, she continued to work as a cook and once again infected a ton of people. She lost her battle to pneumonia in 1938 while still staying on the island. More loss of life occurred in 1905 when a steamship caught fire close to the island and a memorial fountain stands in Tompkins Square in the East Village. The hospital was opened once again to house war veterans, and it was then used to house addicts and help them with treatments. 1963 saw the doors shutting for good and is now off limits to the public, but certainly not the birds. It is now a sanctuary for huge nesting colonies of black-crowned night herons. If you could, which of these abandoned sites would you most like to visit? Let us know in the comments below and subscribe to our channel for more interesting daily videos. Thanks for watching.